Hey there YouTube, welcome to part 2 of this little mini series, and in this series I'm going about trying to repair a few Xbox 360s. So as I mentioned in part 1, this is a little kind of beyond what I normally do. I'm usually looking at older, more retro stuff like Segas and Nintendos, but I got a good deal on some Xboxes, so we'll see what we can do. This particular one gave us the red ring error, so you try and turn it on and you get the red ring of death showing up here. So I'm going to show you how to open that up and fix it and try and get this all cleaned up and ready to go. So I'm going to show you something quickly about this Xbox before I open it. So what I need to do is I need to get this plastic shell off, and that involves, really, you need some sort of tool to get in here to separate it. And when I look at these holes, someone has obviously attempted to get in, or maybe successfully got in already. As you can see, it's kind of scratched up. There's marks in the plastic, so someone's tried to probably repair this. They make a special tool that you can get that will make it easier to get into an Xbox, and I don't have one of those. As like I said, newer consoles aren't really what I do a whole lot of. So I'm going to do a slightly cruder method, which involves using a slotted screwdriver. So essentially what has to happen, I have to get in there, and there's a couple little tabs to open, and I have to push them down while I slide the top of this off. So I'm going to try and do that, and I will show you once I'm in a little bit what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm going to try and open up this case here without using any type of specialized tools. You can get an Xbox 360 case tool, which makes it easier to remove the casing. I don't have one, and I'm hoping to do it without having to order one. So what you do first is the faceplate comes right off. You start from the bottom. There's an area to get your finger under there, and you just pull it right off like that. Now that that's off, you have exposed front of this. So again, we see signs that someone's been in here doing something. As well, if you notice here, it looks like this part was coming off as well. So someone's obviously been tinkering around a bit. Next, what we're going to do is get this bottom plate off. So you flip it over so that you have the feet pointing up. And then what you're going to need to do is get something small that can get through these holes here. Because there is a release. There's a couple releases here. One is right here. So I'm just using some pins and trying to get that pushed down. It's not quite going. So I'm going to switch to just a very fine screwdriver tip, and we'll try the same thing. There we go. Need something a little stronger. So you just push down, and there are these little pins that will release. So again, someone's been in here, and they've actually broken a couple of these off. But, oh well. So there we have it. That's the faceplate. So normally there would be one more here and one more tab here, and in this case there isn't. But, oh well, we'll set that aside. And now time to tackle the actual casing itself. So what we need to do is get in here and basically pry this apart. There's, again, some more tabs that have to be released, and they make a special tool just for this, which makes it look really easy to do. All I'm doing is pushing my screwdriver in here, pushing down these tabs, and it's letting go as well. So there are a few up here, and there's two down by the power port. So again, push, push, and that's just opening up quite nicely, actually. I didn't even have to force it or pry it or anything. So let's get that up, and okay, so this part's what comes up. So there's something still catching up here. Oh, I think there's a couple releases right here I need to let go. Maybe not. I'm going to play with this a little bit and figure out what needs to happen, and I will update you shortly. Alright, so back to the front of the system. So there are a couple releases which I didn't let go, and they're right here. So there's one clip right there, which try and get under and let it go. One at the very bottom. one right here. Now normally there's a warranty label right here, which has already been removed. And the last one is near the top of the system right here. So pop those open, and the top is supposed to just start to lift right off. So let's see, or the bottom, I'm sorry. Nope, something is still holding it in, so again, I will have to find what it is, and once I do, I'll be sure to let you know. Okay, so I was able to lift this top part out, and again, it just has these little connectors here that go in and hold it into place. Again, it looks like one has been broken off, so someone's tried to get in here before, and now it feels like this is gonna come off pretty easily. There. So the top cover comes right off, and here we have the system itself. So when we take a look here at this heat shield, it looks like it uses just a combination of Torx screwdrivers or screws, and I think these are just stripped Torx screws. I don't think they're actually hex. Yeah, those are Torx. They were just stripped previously. So, oh, there's a piece of plastic. So we're going to have to start unscrewing some of this stuff. So again, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to see if we can get anything else off before we go too deep into this. The first thing that you note is this eject button. So the eject button should be able to come right out. It's supposed to pop up just like that, and you can set that aside. Yeah, so next step will be getting this open here. So I'm going to pause and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've taken a look, and in order to get this shielding off, you have to remove a few different screws. So there's 6 Torx screws that you need to take off, and those are located here, 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 and there. So I'm going to get to work on taking those out. This takes I believe it's a T12 Torx screwdriver you require. If you don't happen to have a 12, a 10 will work as well. That's actually what I'm using. Just, you have to be careful not to strip them, as it is a little bit undersized, so it may be more prone to slipping. But so far it seems to be grabbing the screws all right. So let's open these up. These are quite big, so I believe they hold into the casing below. Alright, so those are off, and what we do now, you take the whole thing, holding it well, flip it over, and the case should now lift right off. There we go, so that's the top of it. So that's the underside. It's got some shielding on it. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. There's a little bit of corrosion right there, actually. And that would be, if we were to flip that over, nope, it goes on this way. So that would be right over here by the disk drive. So I don't see anything on the board to indicate that, you know, water or anything has been sucked in. So hopefully it's not a big deal. But here we can also see the fan. I'm going to show you this. So the fan is just plugged with dust. So whoever opened this, I don't really know what they were doing, or probably they didn't succeed in opening it, because that's going to be the first thing I want to clean, is that heatsink full of dust. That's probably what caused the component failure, was it couldn't cool itself properly, so it just plugged with dust. It couldn't get airflow and overheated and shut down. So I'm going to start tearing this apart, and we will get that cleaned as soon as we can. We'll also give the board a bit of a clean as well. Again, all I use for this, toothbrush and alcohol. It does wonders. Okay, so I'm going to remove the disk drive first. So I'll put this sideways so that you can see a bit better. So on the drive, there's a little bit of security tape right here, and all you do, you lift it up to break that. It's just foil tape, and the drive will actually lift right out. There are no tools or anything required. There are a couple of connectors, and you just simply disconnect those. Yeah, they just plug straight in. There's no type of release or anything. So that's your disk drive. It is a little dusty. I'm going to basically blow that off. I'm going to use my air compressor with the nozzle tip and just try and shoot any dust off of it. I'm not going to go inside the disk drive. So, I mean, this isn't open to begin with, but you don't want to be blowing anything into the actual optical laser or anything like that, as that will cause read problems. Next, what I'm going to do is try and get into this heatsink cover. And the way to do that, there's a little release in this square rectangle here. So you're supposed to push down. Let me see if I can get in here. There we go. So all you do to get in there, if you take a small screwdriver, go around the edge here, and just simply pop it up, and then it releases from the rest of it. Alternatively, it appears that you could go, let's put this back. It also appears that you could go straight in the side and then pop it out that way. But my way seems a little bit easier. And now we have the board itself. You can see the fan right here, which is again very dusty. The heatsink, which is extremely dusty. This heatsink, which is dusty. And yeah, basically this whole thing is just chock full of dust. So what we need to do is get the board out of here and give this a thorough clean. So what I will do, we're going to flip this over again, and we're going to get working on removing the rest of these case screws. So these screws all along the sides here are what hold the motherboard into place. These screws, I believe, are what's going to hold the heatsink into place. So I'm going to slowly release those, and I'll be back once that's done. So I've removed all the silver screws. They are all the same size, fortunately, so you don't have to worry about specifically where they came from. Now, time to move on to these black screws. The black screws are slightly smaller, so this will actually use a T8 screw bit. So swap your bit out and just go start unscrewing these. So they are very small screws, so you want to be careful that you don't drop them or lose them or anything like that. Alright, so all the screws are removed. So we're going to flip it back over, being careful as the screws holding it in place are no longer there. And this board should start lifting out. So there's a couple things before we do that. Firstly, this is the connector for the fan. We want to disconnect it from the board so that it's no longer getting power. If you lift up this shielding, it should actually pop right out. It's got two little metal clips, just like that, and we should be able to lift it right out of this whole case. There we go. So that's the other side of that fan, absolutely full of dust, so we're going to give that a good clean with the compressor and see if we can't get that looking better. Otherwise, this board should lift right out, so you want to be careful not to break it. You want to be careful not to damage any other components on the board as well. So I got to figure out a good way to lift it out. And once I do, I will share it with you. I think just slow and steady wins the race here. So before I go any further, what needs to happen is this part needs to come right off. So again, it looks like it uses the T8 screwdriver. So we'll disconnect the 2 screws at the top, and it should just simply slide out. Yep, those are the same screws as the rest of this. And this part should just, it looks like it simply plugs in kind of like a USB connector would. Okay, so there is one more part that we need to take off, and this is this plastic cover. So this pops right off, and we've exposed one more screw, and that's why this wasn't coming off right away. So we'll take that screw, remove it, and then this component should simply lift right out. It plugs in with a sort of almost USB-like plug there. So that's the power switch and the LEDs that show you when it's on. So from there, now the board should simply lift right out. There we go. So we'll lift that out. We're going to set the casing aside, and this is what we've got. So as I mentioned to you before, it's absolutely plugged full of dust. On the bottom side here are some screws which hold these heat sinks into place. So these brackets will need to come off, and that's going to be our next step. So we'll find a screwdriver that will work for that. I'm not actually sure what these use. So I will test some screw bits and I will let you know what I find. Okay, so it turns out these don't unscrew. What you actually have to do is pry them off. So I'm going to show you what I mean. So I use my small slot head screwdriver, get it in the side, and simply twist it so that the bottom will wrap around this screw post and will lift right off. So you're going to do that for all of these. Once you get the first one out, the rest of them come out a lot easier. So we'll put that aside. And again, the same thing here. So flip it over, take my small screwdriver, twist it, and it comes right up like that. So when you are doing this, you need to be very careful that you're not accidentally slipping and damaging the board. If you break some traces on this board is very small, very difficult to repair. So you've basically permanently damaged the system if that happens. And there's number 2. So now we can flip it over and we should have access to the heat sinks. So now these heat sinks can be removed, and it's just a matter of giving even pressure up and it'll come right off. So there's one, and number 2, there we go, and there's number 2. So those are going to need a thorough cleaning as well. And then the rest of the board is going to get blown off, so I'm going to clear this dust off and I'll be back in a few moments. So I've cleaned the board up, and next what I'm going to do is, using some paper towel and some rubbing alcohol, I need to clean the thermal paste off these processing chips. So try and get it as clean and as shiny as possible. And once that's done, it's going to be ready for us to reflow the solder on this. So usually it be a few minutes. It starts to set up and become kind of hard after a while. So sometimes you may even need to kind of loosen it up a little bit and then give it a really good scrub. So I'm going to keep at that for a little bit, and once it's clean, I will show you what it looks like. So when you start getting the solder off, the chip should start to look kind of shiny like this. So I still have a little bit to go. It does get kind of hard to remove at some point, so but you just got to keep at it. Some things I've seen recommend using something like nail polish remover. I'm not sure how I feel about putting chemicals like that on here, whether it's going to have other effects down the road, who knows. But I'm going to keep at this for a bit, see if I can get this cleaner. I've cleaned off the heat sinks, so all I used was my compressor, with a nozzle tip and just blew the dust right off these. So they're nice and clean now. You'll also have to clean the bottom of the heatsink. So get the thermal paste off that. We're going to replace the thermal paste with all new paste here. So if you haven't already, you may need to pick some up from a computer store. You can go somewhere that deals with computers and you can probably pick some up. It's pretty cheap, only a few dollars. So yeah, I'm going to get this all set up, and we're also going to try and just use some hot air to reflow the solder joints from these processors. That may also help with preventing this from happening in the future. Okay, so I've got this set up. I've got it just sitting on a bucket here, and we're going to try and heat this up. So what you want to do is grab a heat gun. A simple hairdryer is not going to do the trick. You need something with a little bit more power. And you turn it on low. This is just a basic one. It costs maybe 20 bucks. And the idea being is you want to heat up the entire board. You don't want to get it hot, but you want to warm it up to the point where when you concentrate on the chips, you're not going to cause expansion in certain areas and warp the board. So just give it a general light warm up, cover the whole thing, maybe for about 30 seconds, and then once you're ready, you're going to focus on the chips themselves. So that's probably about good. Now, what we're going to do is, keeping the nozzle moving about 3 or 4 inches away, just focus on the CPU and the GPU. So we're going to just heat that up nicely. You want to make sure that this stays absolutely level. The idea here is that you're going to loosen up some of the solder joints. Once you remove the heat, it's going to reconnect it. So if you bump it, if you knock it over, if you have it on a slant, you risk displacing components, and that will cause permanent damage. You're not going to be able to fix that. So I'm going to go back and forth, give it about 10-15 seconds on each chip, and do that about 10 times, and once it's done, I will be back. Alright, so we've reflowed the solder around these processors. Now it's time to get the heat sinks reinstalled. So what we do first is use a little bit of thermal paste. Thermal paste is basically an agent that helps with dissipating the heat. So in order to do that, you need thermal paste, and then you need a card, and I don't have a card, so I have to go get a card. I'll be back in a moment. Alright, so this will work nicely. I just have, it's like a Waramps key tag. It's got to be something that's strong enough that you can apply paste on. So what you do, you take the tip off, and you're just going to put a small amount of thermal paste on each processor, each chip here. There we go. And then, using your card, you're just simply going to spread it around the top so that you have a thin layer of thermal paste which covers the entire chip. And I'll let you get a little bit of a closer view on what it is that I'm doing. So I'm simply spreading it along the entire surface of the chip so that it covers the entire thing. There we go. You don't want it on too thick, but you need enough to cover it and for it to do its job. So this appears to be an appropriate amount. There we go. So thermal paste is reapplied. Now we're just going to reinstall the heat sinks. So the heat sinks are actually part of the problem with the design of the Xbox 360, especially the early ones. And the problem comes with these clamps. They're just simply not strong enough to do their job properly and hold the heat sink in place. A good permanent solution would be to actually fully replace that, but I don't have replacement clamps, and that's just not something I'm going to do today. So what we do, we're going to put the fan in. You might, or not the fan, sorry, the heatsink. You might notice there's a white border going around each of these processors, and that's to help you line up these heat sinks. So the heatsink will simply sit in place like that, and the posts go through the board. And then you put the next fan in, or next heatsink, and same thing. The coil that's right here will be sitting just right between these capacitors, so that way you know you have it in the right place. And then flip it over. So you're going to have to support these a little bit. It can rest on the taller heatsink, but you will have to hold up the smaller one in order for it to stay in place. Now, what we're going to be tasked with doing is reapplying these clamps. So I guess the best way to go about doing that is just to push them into place. And be careful that you're not going to damage the board. So don't grab a corner of the board and just go to town on it, because you could break or warp the board. There we go. So heatsink number 1 is sitting in place nicely. We're going to do the same for heatsink number 2. So put this on, flip it over, again supporting the board. Then we're just going to slide these clamps on in place. So we'll give it a tug just to make sure that it's on there, and it looks to be okay. So heat sinks are now reinstalled, and we have new thermal paste which will help transfer the heat into the heat sinks. Now it is just a matter of grabbing the case here. We're going to put the board in. We're not going to screw it all together because we need to test it to make sure that it actually works. You may want to put the fan in place before you do this. Just be a little bit easier. So on the bottom of the fan there are these little posts right there, and there are little holes on the bottom of the case. So you're going to install it with the connector on the left side, line up the holes, and then it just simply snaps into place just like that. Now the motherboard again slides right into place, getting this connector out of the way, and it just drops right down just like so. I'm going to plug the fan in, and then we need to put this component back on. So this just slides into the front just like that, and it snaps in with that connector there. You need that in order to power the thing on. Next up will be, we're going to leave this off right now. It's not a functional component. And next will be the disk drive. So the disk drive again just connects in the back like this. So we have these two connectors. We snap them into place, and then the disk drive just sits just like that. Now I believe we are pretty much good to go. So we're going to hook up the power, hook up the video connector, and we'll give this a test to see if it works. Again, as I'd mentioned before, this is the first time I've attempted working on an Xbox 360, so thank you for your patience. We were both kind of learning on the job here. So we've got that all hooked up. I'm going to turn my TV on. And time to power it up. So we don't have the faceplate on, so obviously it doesn't look like you're used to, but the power button's right here. And we have boot, so that is good. I'm going to grab a controller, and we're going to see if I can sync up a controller with it. So let's give this a try. I need something to push the button with, so this is the button down here to sync, and so you can really hear that fan speeding up. Oh, that's why I was pushing the wrong button. Rookie mistakes. There we go. So controller number 1. And let's see. We will not create a profile. Skip sign in. Oh, it's not going to let me. Oh, there we go. So let's open the tray. So the disk drive does not appear to want to open. So maybe an issue with this here. Let's see if we can't kind of coax it into coming. So we're going to have to look into this disk drive a little bit, but I mean, we seem to have solved that red ring of death problem. So, I mean, we've done a good job with that. Next step is going to be figuring out this disk trace. So, thanks a lot for watching this portion of it. I'm going to separate this into a couple different segments so it doesn't get too long. The next segment we're going to look at, oh, red ring again. So, obviously this wasn't a permanent fix. Now, let's see what the too light red ring code means. Just going to search it here. So 2 means overheating. So we're still overheating. Probably because I didn't have this fan shroud on. So it would be a good idea to put that on before you have it running for any extended period of time. So I'm actually going to do that right now, and we'll see if that makes any difference.